So for the past couple of days, for the past about 4 days, I've been talking a lot about archetypes and the mature masculine archetypes that are expressed through the king, warrior, magician, and the lover in their full integration. And a lot of you guys have liked it. I've mostly been just talking about this on the community posts because that's really the only thing that gets any attention from my subscribers, because I'm kind of like, you know, blocked in a shadow banned to a degree because of stuff I used to post about a year ago. But I thought I'd make a video about this because I've said a lot of stuff with regards to the shadow forms of these archetypes, with regards to like the impotent lover, the addicted lover, the innocent one, the manipulated, or the manipulator, with regards to the shadow side of the magician and all of this type of stuff, the tyrant, the weakling, all of this. And a lot of you guys are like, yeah, this is interesting, but how do you approach kind of the integration of these archetypes, you could say? And how do you kind of confront these problems within yourself with regards to like the shadow forms of these archetypes, like the tyrant, the weakling, all this? How do you overcome them so that you can start to integrate the archetypes in a much more virtuous, righteous way towards a more noble form of good than just being the kind of split version of self that is represented through the shadow and stuff like this? So you could say that the first step is critical self-appraisal. The realistic, honest question we need to ask ourselves is, how are the negative or shadow sides manifesting and showing up in our lives on a daily basis? We need to be aware of this. We need to analyze our life. Let us remember that the key to maturity, of course, to becoming the mature masculine, from boyhood to manhood, is to become humble. That's like the main aspect of maturity, is humility. To grasp humility, basically. And true humility consists of two things. The first is knowing our limitations, and the second is getting the help we need. Instead of running away, instead of kind of being emotionally avoidant or whatever, or even kind of pushing people away, we need to instead reach out for the help that we need, and we need to know of our own limitations. That is humility, and that's the attempt of us embracing humility to become mature. So when it comes to a Jungian or maybe imaginative way of looking at how to embrace, or more specifically access, the archetypal powers of the mature masculine, we need to do something in relation to active imagination. Now, prayer is a form of active imagination. Most Jungians or whatever psychologists wouldn't really look at prayer as active imagination, because they usually just see it as, oh, it's religion. The Sigmund Freud people of the world, like, oh, it's religion. It's restricting people's access to, to freedom or whatever, or self-expression, when really it's not. But active imagination is basically prayer. You're actively using your imagination to relate to something which is not there right in front of you. Instead, it is something that's much more cognitive, mental, and spiritual, or the merging of both mind and body into the spiritual realm, so that you can ascend your attention towards something that is divine, so that through belief and through faith, through the practice of prayer. Now, you do the same thing basically with the archetypes, right? King, warrior, magician, lover. A good maybe starting point is to, because there's beautiful expressions of paintings and art, especially if you're a very visual learner or a visual thinker, or if you're very much like the aesthetics. It'd be good to get maybe some pictures of the king, warrior, magician, lover in their archetypal painting styles, let's say. Put them in your room somewhere and literally meditate with them with regards to your own questioning and self-analysis, if you want to try and access these archetypes in a more powerful way towards virtue and nobleness, or the virtues they simply represent within themselves. So in active imagination dialogue, we kind of talk with them, contacting one or more of them and giving our point of view. Then we listen to their replies, you could say. Often it is best to do this maybe on paper, writing both the ego's thoughts and feelings and the opponent's thoughts and feelings just as they come, without censoring them. At a minimum, the king of exercise will help us to scope out the opposition and get most of the cards on the table. Forewarned is to be forearmed. The answers you get may be startling, they may be reassuring, but they will come. So this is something you want to do with something like the shadow archetypes that might be resting within you. You want to write out your ego's thoughts in relation to yourself and write out the shadow's thoughts so that you can kind of compare and be comparative, so you understand the differences here. So a very important aspect of maybe accessing these more mature masculine archetypes is through invocation, and we access the masculine archetypes in their fullness as positive energy forms. So we need to be religious here. We need to be spiritual here in our attempt at coming to understand these ways of life, these virtues, fundamentally. So if possible, find a quiet place and time in your day and try and relax the mind the best you can and focus on an image that is both mental pictures and spoken words, spoken in your head at least. It is often useful to spend some time looking for images, like I was saying, of the king, warrior, magician, and lover. And during this exercise, set that image in front of you. So as you relax, talk to the image in your mind and call up the king within you or something like this. Seek to merge your deep unconscious with the image. Realize that you as an ego are different from that image, different from the archetype in its full embodiment. In your imagination, make your ego his servant, because it's fundamentally humility that's going to save you here. Humility in relation to your ego towards an ideal, or in relation to your ego towards something that is beyond you and something that is higher than you. Because you want to be a servant to that which is higher. In the same sense that with Christianity and Jesus Christ, you want to be a servant to Christ. You want to be taking up your cross and following him. It is the same, very much the same thing. So, but you might be thinking, oh, is this idolatry? I'll get to that in a minute, right? So, especially if you're a Christian or a religious person. So realize that you as an ego are different from him. All this. Feel his calm and his strength, his balanced benevolence towards you, his watching over you. In effect, pray to him. Tell him that you need him, that you need this help, his power, his favor, his orderliness, his manliness, and his disposition. So what is obviously comparable here is that we are talking and suggesting prayer that is found in religion. And depending on your maturity as a man or as a woman or whatever, you will eventually, I would say, come to the realization that this is basically Christianity, okay? Especially if you're already a Christian, because Jesus Christ embodies the king, warrior, magician, and the lover. He embodies those four archetypes. King, because he's the king of all kings, which is why King Herod tries to kill him, right? The divine child to become Christ. He's the magician at the same time because he heals he uses his power, his supernatural power, to heal certain people. He's a warrior at the same time because he embraces the suffering of his purpose and dies for the sins of man. And he's also a lover because of the compassion he has, being the Son of God, to die for the sins of man. So the suffering, the embracing of the suffering through hardship, the love and compassion, the agape love, for example, selfless love, and the healing of the sick or the poor through his miracles, and being the King of Kings. So he's an embodiment of all four, and that is why you Christians pray and worship Jesus Christ, because he is the embodiment of these four archetypes. And once you realize that, maybe it leads you more towards Christianity, because at the end of the day, the invocation, the emerging of yourself to these archetypes towards something that is beyond your own will, is a religious endeavor. And once you identify that Jesus Christ represents those 4 archetypes, fundamentally, then it's simply just going to lead you further down the route of Christ and your worship of Christ. Because, there's going to be some people in the psychological community or people like Robert Moore who talks a lot about this. I'm using as for a lot of references for understanding these archetypes. He would say, pray to these archetypes. But simply, it's praying and worshipping Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ is the sinless man, God coming into the form of man, the invisible God made flesh. And he embodies all those archetypes. So fundamentally, to invocate and to understand the mature masculine, you need to commune with the mature masculine through the 4 archetypes in whatever way you wish, or whatever way you wish starts out to be effective for you. And then that will mature itself into a different process so that you can commune with those archetypes to get an understanding of the virtues, understanding of goodwill, so that you can have further guidance on your journey as a man towards your masculinity from boyhood to manhood. So that's fundamentally how you access these archetypal powers of mature masculinity through active imagination, whereby you separate your ego with humility from the archetype as a guiding principle. So I hope that helps you guys out, clears up a couple of questions that you might have had with regards to the whole thing. And of course, if you are interested at all in checking out my individuation mini course, which is free, you can check it out in the link in the description down below. Of course, I've also got a newsletter that is totally free, and a free one-on-one discovery call with regards to procrastination, building self-esteem, overcoming bad habits. If anything like that relates to you, check those links out in the description. I'd love to help you out and see where we can go with everything. And with that said, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll speak to you in the next one.